Aloha, welcome to another episode of Love What with Audrey Weilai, where I ask my friends and mentors what non-romantic love means to them. Today, the special guest is my sister in Ferns, Jennifer Flores. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome.
Aloha. Thank you, Audrey, for having me on your show.
Where are you tuning in from?
I'm actually tuning in from Montreal, Canada. I was just in Hawaii for the whole summer. I'm missing it so much. Let's bring the aloha over here to Canada.
Yay. Before we start the conversation, would you mind leading us with kuleke?
Yeah, beautiful. So kulike is the protocol that Brother Keoni had taught us in Aloha Ma. And so I'd be honored to bring that in for all of us today. Let's just close our eyes, get settled in our seat, just tune us into our bodies, allowing us to fully land in this present moment, noticing how our body feels, and just acknowledging those sensations without having to dive in right now. Just allowing everything to be here with us, knowing that everything that we're experiencing and feeling and thinking is sacred and all is welcome. Let's take a deep breath in through our nose, filling our womb space with air, just holding that breath, expanding in this space, allowing us to land in our feminine, and exhaling out. In this space, we find our unconditional compassion for ourselves, a holding space that is tuned to the Sacred Mother, where we belong, where we get to pause so that we can discern and decide where we are safe to feel, to surrender. So I invite you to lift your left hand, palm facing to the sky, tuning into the energy of the sacred feminine that lives within you. Taking a deep breath into the palm of your hand, and bringing your left palm to the womb space and exhaling out, allowing our sacred feminine, our sacred mother to land in our bodies, knowing that this is where she belongs, this energetic of ours is lived in our body. Now let's take a deep breath into the womb space again, just allowing our feminine to truly land and feel safe here with us in the body. And we utter the words, I am safe. I belong. I decide. Thank you, my sacred mother, and I love you. Now let's tune into our heart space, taking a deep breath into the chest, opening up our rib cage so that our heart can open, and exhaling out as we tune into the space of our sacred masculine, where we feel into our authenticity, our integrity, our passions, and who we are at the purest level of our heart. Let's lift our right hand, palm facing to the sky, invoking this energetic of our sacred masculine into the palm of our hand. Taking a deep breath and pulling in our hand to our heart as we exhale, allowing our very own sacred masculine to land in the heart space. Who are we authentically? How are we living? How are we expressing ourselves? How are we being? And are we doing this from a place of love? Because when we do this from a place of love, when we be from a place of love, then we get to tend to and protect what is sacred within ourselves, which is our beautiful life that we're living, the visions of our feminine, the visions of our soul. Let's take another deep breath into the heart space. And as we exhale out slowly, feel into the core of who we are, repeating the words, I open my heart wider. Thank you, my sacred masculine, and I love you. And as we hold ourselves in this position of kulike, in right relationship, let's take another deep breath, opening up our entire torso, connecting our masculine and feminine in sacred union. Exhaling out and landing in our aloha ma as we utter these words. Aloha ma, aloha ma, aloha ma.
Whoa. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Well, thank you to Brother Keoni for teaching that to all of us.
Yes. Could you share more about Aloha Ma?
I'll actually start first with introducing myself, if that's okay. So everyone
Yes, of
doesn't.
course.
So, my name is Jennifer, and I am the founder and practitioner of Living Kuleana. Living Kuleana actually means to live in your sacred responsibility. When you live in your sacred responsibility, you're really taking it upon yourself to be accountable for every aspect of who you are, living in right relationship with yourself. And so that practice came to me years ago, even before I met Keoni. I feel like when we dove into Aloha Ma together, and this is well, I'll pull this in, I really understood what right relationship meant by learning Aloha Ma. And then from my experience in Aloha Ma, I was able to decipher what my own definition of self love and self reflective love or right relationship truly meant for me.
What is self-love and self-respect to you?
Really felt this within myself, and I wanted to take a lot of time to think about this. And for me, it's that love is the totality of the entire human experience. Everything we're feeling, thinking, doing is all rooted in love, and we're all living this in our own sacredness. And we have reverence for every piece of that human experience and that human totality. So even if we're feeling those negative emotions or we're going through negative experiences, it's all in alignment with what is sacred because it's all there. We have been provided this experience of life, and we have to experience it with this sacredness because this is what we were given from our creator. And so
Yes.
when we move through those not so easy experiences in life, I just look at this as a lesson or a test or an initiation to look into that frequency of love.
That's so well said. Thank you. Could you share more about the different methods that you use to help bring more light into the world?
Yeah, totally. Well, I started my journey in Reiki about 5 years ago, and I started using that modality because it was useful for me and I found it very meaningful to me. I was going through my
Yes.
own period of grief and kind of like a void liminal space in my life where I couldn't get those emotions out of me. When I started to work with a Reiki practitioner, I was able to unblock those emotional blockages, energetic blockages. And so I found it really helpful. And so I decided to train as a Reiki practitioner as well. And then as I was training as a Reiki practitioner, what I also realized down the road was that Reiki was a modern version of this ancient Filipino modality called hilot, which Babaylans use. I'm Filipino, so if we look
Okay.
in our ancient heritage, we have energy healing as our modality. And discovering this,
Yes.
it was beautiful because it came very naturally to me. So I felt like it was just coming through in a way from my DNA. And so when I do Reiki, it's a lot of hands on and hands off. And this is where I look at someone's body and also feel intuitively where in their body they're holding certain blockages that are keeping them away from their light. And so when you're doing, the manipulations and you're moving the energy, you start to see this flow that starts to oscillate in the body by doing that energy work. So I would say like energy work, I wouldn't call it like Gila, but or like Reiki specifically, because I've kind of made my own energy healing,
Yes.
learning both. Um,
Yeah.
and then I bring people into a lot of breath work, meditation, NLP, so neuro linguistic programming, just to help repattern certain mindsets. And just ceremony, just like holding a sacred space for people to be able to fully
Mm.
surrender and be themselves, and whatever comes through for them comes through in the session, and we work with all those modalities.
Yes. And this is the second time I'm hearing the phrase liminal space. Our other sister, Jennifer Lady, mentioned it 2 days ago, and I wanted to ask what that means.
Yeah, liminal space kind of resembles a void space for me, where everything and
Okay.
anything is possible. Sometimes we look at a void space as this dark, unknown uncertainty. But what I've really truly started to love about doing a lot of shadow work is that within the dark space or the liminal space, there is so much more that we can see because we're fully surrendering into that unknown. And
Yes.
my husband's actually like very versed in liminal space as well. And he just told me this yesterday. He said liminal space is as if you're walking through a hallway and you see all the doors and you get to decide which door to open. And this
What?
never ending. Yeah, I was like, wow, you're so tuned in. That's like one way of putting it. I would say that for me, also the liminal space, it's like a blank canvas. Here is where you get to start preparing things, start planting seeds, start making sure that your soil is fertile to grow your garden. It's
Mhm.
really a time for deep rest, for a pause, to not feel guilty, to not be productive, right? It's just to be in the presence of yourself and what you're feeling and experiencing in the moment.
What do you do to help cultivate that space for people that choose to work with you?
Yeah, so to get into that space, usually, so I do a mentorship and it's called Activate Your Divinity, which I'm actually retitling to Remembering Your Truth. So the second month is where we really do that shadow work, and it's really diving deep into core memories of your childhood, also the depths of what you're feeling in your body. So it's very felt when I get into the liminal space. For me, it resembles like a womb space as well. So
Mm,
everything before creation is just kind of this preparation of this life that's about to birth itself. And so when we get into the liminal space, it's really diving deep into the core of our soul. And it's looking at what has been here that has kind of maybe put blinders on me into what my truth really is. And so to get into that space, I bring people into very deep visual somatic meditations. And it's there where they get to feel certain sensations in their body that brings up
mm,
certain memories. And then whatever memory that is, we dive deep into those and then we complete the ceremony of what that experience was. So let's say you were experiencing something in your childhood that was traumatic and you never actually fully processed it and had closure on that. So, whatever
yes.
sensation you feel in your body, we dive really deep into that. And then we bring the person in to reparent themselves, kind of remother themselves the way they need
Mm,
to in order to have closure on that from a space that feels right for them to be healed.
mm. Feel free to share or just pass. Were there childhood experiences in your life that you can remember that shaped or pushed you into doing the work that you do?
Oh my gosh. There's so much. I would say that Mother medicine has been very useful for me in diving deep into my own experiences of coming back to myself and returning to my light. I would say that I remember my grandmother being a very instrumental part of what is happening now in my life as a healer and a mentor,
Yes.
someone who's guiding people. And what I remember from her is the motherly love that she gave to all of her grandchildren. And it was really unconditional. She was that anchor and that support system for all of us. And I know a lot of, people have mother wounds and including myself.
Yes.
And what I realized with mother medicine is that we have to heal our mother wounds to fully know how to mother ourselves. And I had to have a lot of closure with some of the woundings that had happened throughout my relationship with my mother. And so
Mm,
when I did, I was able to go back into my childhood memories where I felt I wasn't supported in the way of feeling my emotions or talking about things without someone freaking out and feeling safe to surrender and be supported. And that really came from how I mothered my inner child. And so that's why I feel
yes.
like mother medicine has been so useful in the way that I guess navigated my life.
Mm,
And very recently too is when I started to go deeper into that I started to realize that the mother is kind of she holds the ceremony of your life. Yeah, I'm a mother now. I've started to realize
yes.
through motherhood that I have to care for my son through all of his ups and downs. And the way I look at it is the unconditional love of the mother is the one that anchors us back to ourselves from our own sacred mother, the healed mother. And when she
Yes.
births the baby, it's kind of like a painful thing to go through childbirth. It's
That's what I heard.
not, am I really doing this? But you got no choice. The baby's there, right? So this
Yes.
life is coming through and you're that life, right? And so just to know how much sacrifice in terms of like pain that your mother had to go through, like you had to go
Wow.
through to come into this world And now she's holding the ceremony of your life. And so the sacred mother, if you can maybe just imagine her as our earth mother. And so when she births us through her portal, being that bridge from like the unseen to the seen, then we come to life. And then she has to nurture us in a certain way. And then we grow up and then we have different developments that happen. And she's always there. She's always
Yes.
cheering us on. She's always supporting us. She's giving us her entire love. And it's really up to us to come back to her to feel that if we don't already feel it
Mm,
within ourselves. It's just a reminder that we are Earth and Earth is us. I look at Earth as
mm,
our embodiment, like our body.
yes.
And
Yes.
we also really function as the same way as Earth does. The life cycle of Earth is, birth, there's growth, there's death, and then
Mm,
there's
mm,
like kind of like a cycle that goes through. There's another death, and then you just spiral up in your evolution. And her love, her support is always going to be there no matter what we go through, even if we resist connecting with her. She's
mm.
still there. She's never left. It's up to us to tune into that.
And why do we resist connecting and reconnecting with our mother?
I think in my experience holding people, one of the biggest things has been the resistance of connecting with the mother because of their mother wounds, but also
Yes.
the deep feelings of shame and guilt are really hard to see. And within the mother space, you're allowed to go there and surrender into those feelings. But it's very scary for some people because they don't know how they'll react when they face their guilt or their shame. Once that mother wound of yours is healed and you know that you can come into the sacred mother or Mother Earth and talk to
Mm,
her and surrender fully your experience of shame and guilt into her, then you'll feel like she's not there to judge you. She's not there to criticize you, like maybe our own mothers have, but she's just allowing you to come back to your pure heart. And when you come back
yes.
to your pure heart, she's not there to, find solutions right away. She's just there to allow you to see everything. And then you get to look at yourself in a mirror and then ask yourself, okay, shame, what is this reminding me of? Well, maybe shame is just reminding me of the sacredness that I am and that I haven't connected to or that I'm unwilling to see. So shame suddenly
Mm,
doesn't become a bad thing. It's just, well, why haven't I tuned into my sacredness? Why haven't I tuned into my
mm,
worthiness? Here are some memories that are coming up now. The external world have made me feel like I'm not worthy of belonging or I'm not worthy of existing.
mm.
Right. I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't tune into that energy.
What I witness a lot these days that cause a lot of pain and suffering is our choice to remain disconnected from Mother Earth and the animal kingdom. Can people do this work on their own, or it helps to have someone to guide them through, like you do?
I think it really depends on how open and ready someone is. I saw this quote from Hippocrates, and it says, before healing someone, ask if they're ready to get rid of their illness. And so I think it takes a lot of free will, your own sacred will, and the divine will of the universe and the creator to bring you into that
Yeah.
space where you know you're ready to heal. And perhaps you can do it on your own. But some people don't know
Mm.
how to dive into those core memories. And so it can
Yes.
help when someone like myself or others facilitate those spaces so that people can get to that point.
Yeah, I would be one of those that want some hand holding before I dive
Oh.
in.
I've been hand holding myself this last week, so I get it.
You also use Mu energy healing. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I really hadn't tuned into Mu or Lemuria before, like deeply before I met Caitlin.
Mm.
The thing is because when I was starting to see Lemuria online, it was very kind of ethereal. It felt like fantasy more than it did embodiment. That wasn't for me. But the way
Yes.
that Brother Keoni had given his perspective of Mu, I was like, wow, this feels really resonant. And then throughout all of his teachings that I experienced with him, I started to recognize my own lineage with Mu, coming from
Mm.
Maharlika, which is pre-colonial Philippines.
Yes.
When I was talking about healot and energy healing before, these are actual modalities that are coming from my lineage of Mu, where they look at these healing modalities as magic. And they say
Okay.
in my doctrines of Mu in Maharlika, they say that if you haven't gone through your initiations to purify yourself of your distortions, of the negative experiences, the traumas, then it's harder to get to that pure heart love that we're talking about. This kind of like aloha ma, similar
Mm.
way of being, which is pure love. When you go through those initiations, and this is why the Babaila and the healers were revered in our culture, is because they were bringing everyone back to that state of pure heart through
Mm.
the energy healing, through other modalities. There was a lot of shamans in our culture as well, and the shaman is the
Yes.
bridge between the life and the death. So that medicine became such an integral part of our Mu lineage, because you couldn't access Mu lineage in Maharlika if you didn't have a pure heart. And so everybody wanted to make sure that they were in the lineage of Mu, because that's where we come from, right? They didn't want to
Mm.
stray away from the lineage. And so we had to come back to that pure heart. And how did we do it if we didn't know how to do it for ourselves? We went to a Babailan, we went to a Hila practitioner.
Mm.
And that's how we stayed and anchored ourselves in that love. However, we went through many corruptions and many
Yes.
colonizations. And so this idea of moving in the Philippines is very, very modern. It's
Mm.
coming back. And there's someone else who talks about it, Maya the shaman, who talks about her Lemurian lineage as well. But it's very much kind of taboo, because we've been so colonized by the Spaniards for 400 years, been colonized by the Chinese, the Japanese, the Americans.
Mm.
And so it's very hard for us to return to who we are in our ancient
Mm.
times, when there has been so much indoctrination and so much distortion, especially with like the Catholic Church and everything like that. So there's a lot of witch
Yes.
hunting that went on. But there are islands in the Philippines called the Visayan Islands, and there's
Yes.
one specific island called Sikihor, and Sikihor is the magic island, and that's where all the healers are.
Wow. Now I want to go back to the Philippines. I visited so many years ago,
Really?
and yes, I thought it was beautiful, and I had no idea about the depth.
Yeah, me neither until recently also. The whole experience of rediscovering Mu has been such a beautiful reconnection with my lineage, because it all comes from pure heart. And then when we, look into the depth of it all, it's, well, what brings us back to that? It's the culture of healing in Maharlika in the Philippines that brought us.
Mm.
And there's in our doctrines, there's this book by Dio Palma. He wrote a book called
Yes.
Maharlika, and he said you couldn't connect to Mu if you didn't have a pure heart.
What happens when we come out of that pure heart space? I can't imagine someone being in that pure heart space 24/7.
Right, because we're human. Because we're human, we go through human emotions, and that's the thing, right? Like, being a human is really testing us on our spirituality, because we go through traumas and all these, tragic experiences. We see it now in the world. What comes out, what's outside
Yes.
of a pure heart? Look at the world. That's
Mm.
what's outside of a pure heart right now. And, this is why I'm so passionate about bringing people back to their love, their right relationship, living kuleana, living your responsibility to come back to this heart, is
Yes.
because we are earth and earth is us. The frequency that we carry is also the frequency that earth will carry. So if
Mm.
we're collectively consenting to war, and we're collectively consenting to harming ourselves and each other, then that's the frequency that we're going to live here on earth. But if we choose to decide to live in this frequency of this pure, beautiful, reverent love for ourselves, and we
Mm.
encourage others to do the same, then the frequency of earth will change into that, people say, new earth that we're wanting to birth through. And I believe
Yes.
that it's coming through, but we have to keep ourselves anchored in this state of right relationship, of that aloha ma, right? So
Mm.
it's not easy, I know, because
Yeah.
the human mind can play a lot of tricks on us. Our ego can play a lot of tricks on us. But like you giving this platform for people to speak about it, and others who are willing to voice and express their concerns about the state of the world, and bringing us back to this medicine, This is what's going
Yes.
to encourage everybody to tune back in.
Thank you for validating that.
Of course. Yeah.
Is there something small that I can do to help come back to that pure heart space?
Mm, mhm.
It's easy for me to point the finger and say, oh, so and so need to do this. And I'm realizing the key really is from here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the smallest thing that you can do is be the owner of your own domain. And so if you're choosing something that's for you, I always thought the word shouldn't be in a vocabulary because we shouldn't tell anyone anything, right?
Yes.
Like, that's if this is my life. The only thing that you should, or I suggest that you do, is pause for a moment. Whenever you're feeling something that's not in alignment, maybe a distortion, maybe there's a certain pain in your body that's trying to tell you something. Maybe there's heaviness that you're feeling. Like, tune into that first before reacting to anything. Just breathe into your body. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling like this? Be really curious about what you're feeling. And then you can decide, do I need to react the way that I feel like reacting right now? Or can I pull back
Mm.
and come into this experience? And can I look at it from a lens of reverence and love? And then you can decide what to do from there.
Oh, we need to slow down.
Yes, slow down basically is the answer. Yes. Yeah. And it's not easy to slow down, right? Because in this world, it's very fast paced in this modern world that we're living. And this is why I
Yes.
love going back to Hawaii all the time because I'm living slow over there. I come back here. I got my son going to school. I have, we got
Yes.
work to do, and there's a certain routine we have to follow. I decided this last week to pull back from everything that I'm doing just to tend to myself because I needed to slow down. I felt like everything was piling up on me. And so I
Yes.
said, you know what? I'm going to just take this decision. I'm feeling very inflated right now. I need to
Mm.
pull back from everything and just be with myself. What am I feeling? How can I move this and shake this off? And then I started to
Yes.
create structure in my day, more routine and ritual. I don't start any work before I meditate and before I move and reflect on my feelings. And then I can start my day once I've done that. And you're doing yourself such a service to be in that space of ritual before you even start your day because it's like
Mm.
I'm first, me. I get to
Yes.
treat myself first before I dive into anything else. So there's no urgency. Like, I don't have a gun to my head where it says, you have to do this now,
Mm.
which is what a lot of us feel is this urgency of, if you don't do this, you're going to fail or whatever. Like, that feeling of that crisis that Keone likes to call it. If you're not in crisis, then it's just an inconvenience, which I love. I don't know if that's so true. So it's like looking your life as, am I actually going to, die in this moment? No, I'm not.
No.
I'm fine. I can deal. We're gonna reassess what's happening and then we can move through this in a different way.
Yes, he helped me to reframe a lot of my limiting beliefs.
Mm.
Could you share more about your relationship with Hawaii as well as with the ferns? And what is fern medicine?
Well, my relationship with Hawaii started when I was 13. My dad worked for Air Canada, so we were very blessed to travel a lot
Yes.
with discounts.
Yay!
We're in Hawaii almost every year. It was like Maui, Oahu. We went to Kauai, Big Island. I've been to all the major islands so far. And I just had this beautiful love for it because when I went there the first time, I looked at the people and I said, "You look very familiar to me because there's a lot of Filipinos in Hawaii. Is this my family over here? There's so many Filipinos in Hawaii." So the history and everything. But there was always this deep connection to Hawaii. I never wanted to not go. If there was an opportunity to go, I would go. Every time I went back, I learned more life lessons. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm being guided in a certain way. There's something that opens up every time I come back from the islands. And so I just held Hawaii so deep in my heart as this kind of kapuna, like this guide, this ancestor that keeps giving
Yes.
me advice. And then, one day my grandmother who passed away in 2015, uh, she came to me in a meditation and she said, "You look for a Native Hawaiian mentor." They're very specific. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
yeah. So I looked, I had one mentor. His name was James Kawainui. He was amazing. But then there was something deeper that I needed to dive into. And then that's when I met Keoni. And then Keoni went into
Mm.
the whole Mu and the Fern medicine and everything. I am not a expert at Fern medicine. That is definitely Keoni's area. But what I have noticed, what I have noticed about the ferns and what it is in my culture is they look at the ferns as like the hair of the earth, and the hair is like holding many codes and it holds memory, a lot of memories. Right, your own hair holds memory
Yes.
too. And so our culture in Maharlika, they look at the ferns as the memory holders and the code holders. So when he started to talk about fern medicine, and I did that whole immersion with him too, the fact that he was able to tie emotion to ferns was like mind blowing for me. And because I work with a lot of people's emotions, it's helped me to recognize the different ways to see emotions, because maybe we just see it as like a surface level emotion and that's what it is. But he actually connects a voltage to it that helps you understand why this emotion is taking place or what the connection is there with yourself. So I've used his friend medicine for myself in my own practice. I've used his sprays a lot in my Reiki sessions, and I've
Mm.
seen how much it has released and helped so many people. So, Brother Keone, you're doing your thing.
Yay. Yeah, I would love to have him on this podcast as well. So down the road.
Well, I'm sure you will. One friend that I really connect with the most is Reverence, which is kupu kupu. Just because my own feminine, so when I went through Aloha Ma with him, the name of my feminine was sacred. And so sacred is directly connected to reverence, right? And so kupu kupu has been my fern that I've been going. And my last trip to Hawaii, it just showed up everywhere. And it showed up in a time, I think this was the fern immersion. I couldn't get on the fern immersion call because my internet in Haleiwa wasn't working. Like, I don't know what was happening
Okay.
at the tower. Like, there's something wrong with it.
Yes.
So I'm rushing and I'm going to Starbucks and I'm like, oh my God, I can't connect and I'm supposed to speak. And then I realized at Starbucks it is so loud, like no one's going to hear me talk anyway. And then
Yeah.
as I'm leaving Starbucks, I see Kupu Kupu appear. I'm like, of course. And then she reminds me of my sacredness and that there's limitless and endless possibility. That's what she reminds me of all the time. So I get in my car to go back home because I'm like, well, I'm not going to have the internet here. I'm going to try again at home. And I took a deep breath in and then I started chanting. I just started chanting whatever was coming through me in this space and time. And I was asking, my guides and the ancestors around me to help me to connect to this call because it was so needed and I needed to be on this call to speak. And then when I got home, the internet was working.
Thank goodness. That's where I met you.
Yes, exactly. And this is why we're doing this right now, right? So friends are magical. They kind of tune us into like where we are at the moment. And so when I was in that kind
Yes.
of mind space of like, oh my God, this like frantic, like, how am I gonna get on this call? Panic. Kupu kupu said, you don't worry, you got this. Remember, prayer is the best thing for you because one of my nourishments is prayer. And so that's why I did
Yes.
the chants and the pule in the car driving home. And I called it in. I called in the internet back and it was there. It lasted the whole ceremony. And guess what? After that, it was gone again.
It was
I was like, well, okay. Yeah.
mysterious.
It's the magic, right? It's the magic, the unseen. And I always wanted to remind everybody that when you tune into this connection with yourself, that this connection, that right relationship, when you're in it, you radiate this frequency that the world is also radiating back to you. And so you're part of this kind of oneness of this experience of the world. And this is a very simple explanation for magic. Connection to the whole world because of your frequency, because of your radiation, right? Your radiance. And so never forget that you are a magical being connected to all of the energies of the world and you get to decide how to move it.
I feel so empowered hearing that.
But it's true.
Is there anything exciting you're working on?
Yeah. So this last year I was doing a lot of mentorships one-on-one and Reiki sessions. And I had this vision from my grandmother about 2 years ago when we were doing Aloha Ma, and she kept telling me matriarchy, matriarchy. And I was like, okay, what's this all about? And so she has been wanting me to gather other matriarchs, other feminine leaders who are in tune with this frequency of love to change the ways that have been imposed upon us in this world, these, harmful systems and everything. And so I started to gather the Sisterhood of Mu.
Mm.
And so the Sisterhood of Mu now, I think we're about 15 sisters on the council who are doing a lot of deep ceremonial work to purify what has already been harmful so that we can create that blank slate, that liminal space for all of us
Yes.
to recreate what we want for this world. So right now we're in the stage of purification. We're about to come out with an offering for everybody, which is going to be really cool. I think it's going to be about like a five-week series of
Okay.
through different elements, energetic elements of the world, and doing a purification ceremony for each of them so that we can purify the rest of the distortions that are lingering within us. And also, when we do that, we're also purifying the distortions outside of us. So that's one project that's happening. And then we're going to, hold probably retreats, online events, in person events. We have different sisters offering different things. So tune into Sisterhood of Mu on our
Yes.
Instagram community. And then as for myself, I'm changing my work. Not completely, but it's just more aligning with wanting to bring people back to reverence, bringing people back to how it feels to feel sacred. And so I'm going to be offering a few teachings over the next few months. The first teaching is called Revelations. This is when we go into the liminal space. And this is where
Yes.
we get to really dive deep into those core memories that I was talking about in a group setting. So we all get to share with each other, but it's also connected to a lot of ceremonial and ritual work. So I'm going to be teaching practices to get into that liminal space and how to do it for yourself. Yeah. And then after that, comes springtime, I'm releasing something called Enchantment, A Life in Reverence.
Yes.
And so this one is going to be teaching, you've gone through that distortion purification now. Now we're coming back into what it feels like to feel reverent, to feel sacred and magical, full of that alignment of pure love within. And you get to experience life from a lens of like, wow, like this is my life. And so we're going to experience that in that teaching, but you're also going to be invited to do some nature immersions. So as you're doing the work of coming back into your sacredness and your reverence, in Montreal, I'm going to be doing nature walks and nature immersions with people in person. And for people who are
Yes.
around the globe, I'll invite them to do it on their own, wherever
Yes.
they are. And then we come back as a community and we talk about our experiences of what was magical. And when we tune into this right relationship of ours, what did we notice? What was calling to us? So it's really invoking the magic within you again and living that life in enchantment.
Mm. Wow, all sounds so beautiful and
Never
exciting.
one. So this is the first one. I gotta do it now, eh?
Yay. Um, where are the retreats going to be?
That is to be determined, but I know we want to do one here in Canada. So probably northern
Yes.
Quebec, which is where I'm living. I'm living in Montreal. We'll do it probably up north. We'd love to do one in Kauai.
Yes.
Well, there's one that we'd love to do in the Philippines. But I think the first one might either be Kauai or Montreal.
For people that haven't been to Quebec, if they visit, what is one thing you would suggest that they do or experience or visit?
Does this have to be spiritual?
Anything.
I would say number one, we have an amazing food scene. So go out and go to
Mhm.
the restaurants. We have
Yes.
an amazing culture in the food industry. Tune into the language. It's kind of like a mini Europe over here. So if you can't go to Europe,
Mhm.
you can come to Montreal and experience a piece of Europe. It reminds me of Switzerland and France kind of together. The people are very tuned with the joie de vivre, which is enjoying life before anything, versus if you go to Toronto, it's very hustle bustle. But Montreal is more laid back. I would go to Mount Royal to experience our tam tams on Sundays in the summertime, where everyone comes together. They take a drum and everyone just starts coming together and having a good time. And then I would visit the north. The north is beautiful rivers and mountains and hikes. Do a lot of retreats over there. You can rent a cottage, go skiing. There's so many things, beautiful things to do over here.
What about Kauai?
Kauai is my favorite island.
I went there 2 years ago. I was so lush and gorgeous.
Yeah. It is a mystical place. And I think there was one mo'olelo, like a tale of Hawaii, of Kauai specifically, that Kamehameha couldn't invade. For some reason, I think there was like an energetic boundary. I can remember if that was Kauai or Molokai. I think it was Molokai. But he also couldn't take over Kauai for a reason. So I'm feeling like there's some type of protection, like energetic protection or mysticism that Kauai has that cannot be disturbed. And whenever I go there,
Mm.
I feel like my third eye opens very wide and
Yes.
the veil is very thin. Kauai, it's the oldest island, I believe, and it's the most lush, most beautiful place that I've been to. I feel for myself. You know, people might like other
Mm.
islands, but I definitely feel like Kauai is home in some way. I really enjoy Waimea side.
Mhm.
Because it reminds me of my own people, because there's a lot of Filipino side too. Yeah, and the taro fields too. My son loves to pound taro.
How old is your son? Wow.
He loves poi. He loves to eat poi. He loves to make poi. So there's a place in I think Waimea side that does some amazing poi.
Now talking about your son, now that you've are raising a child, how is that shifting your view about motherhood?
Oh man, he has definitely been a mirror for what I need to see in myself. He's brought up a lot of the inner child experiences that needed to be healed. Because when you become a mother, you don't really know what to do. It just kind of happens.
Okay.
And you learn parenting from your own parents. And so I started parenting him the way I was parented. But then I saw some of the harmful ways that it was affecting him. And I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do here? Why is this not a thing for him? You know, and I had to adjust
Mm.
his frequency. And his frequency, like all children, are innocence, purity. And so when he brought me back to this pure place, I'm like, well, if he doesn't want to be parented this way, how should I parent him? How can I parent him? And so I would meet him in a different way. Like there's a lot of yelling in my household, and I did that, you know, and I feel really guilty for that when he was young, when he was about
Yes.
3. And I cried a lot because I was grieving a lot of the things that I, you know, said to him. And but then I had to kind of innovate, and I said, you know what? Instead of yelling, I'm going to come down to his level. I want to talk
Mm.
to him and say, you know, why are you feeling this way? And mommy's sorry for yelling or saying things that hurt your feelings. This is just the way that I was parented. Like my relationship with my son
Mhm.
is very, very honest. So if I'm feeling sad and he sees me like emoting and he sees me crying or being
Mhm.
angry, I want him to know that that's also normal because we're
Yes.
human and we're allowed to be angry and we're allowed to be sad. We're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to experience any emotion and express it. And so he's learned now to be able to do that. So if he's angry, he'll go in his room and yell into a pillow, or if he needs to talk to me because he's sad, he'll come and talk to me. If he tells me he doesn't want me in his room, I respect his boundaries and I let him
Yeah.
be by himself. So it's really taught me to, number one, know what my child's values are, know what his boundaries are, and then move from there because he will tell me how to
Mm.
love him. That's what I've learned also. You know, you need to tell people how to love you. So I need to teach my son to tell people how to love him too.
Yeah, because we love and feel loved in different ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, I remind him that even if I'm your mom, I don't want you to have to prove your love to me, right? I love you always. I love you all the same. I love you unconditionally. And when he knows that, then he no longer has to people please. Because if it makes you happy,
Mm.
then it makes me happy. Because if you're not happy, I'm going to feel really not good inside. You know, I have to explain it to him that way. And so now he'll tell me, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. Even if like my food, I cooked and I'm like, I love cooking. And I'm like, I was like,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm like, okay, fine. It's okay.
2 stars.
People please. Like, I don't want him to do that because then what happens is his whole life, he's going to have to try to prove himself all the time to people. Right. And I did that in my life and it didn't go very well. So now that I'm teaching him these values, I think it does create confidence in the children. It
Mm.
lets them know who they truly are. and be accepted for how they express and how they are, how they're being, their identity.
That's really wonderful. And as we wrap up the conversation, is there anything else you would like to share?
Well, first, I want to give my gratitude to you, Audrey, for creating a space for people to come on and speak their truth about what love means to them. So, thank you for letting me express today.
Thank you.
So, with that, I would probably like to share to not be afraid to speak your truth, because our truth is what everybody needs to hear. Even if we don't agree with it,
You think-
we have to respect and honor everybody's truth and love everybody from a place of this anchored self-love. And we know that pure love is love when we don't want to harm anyone else.
Wow. And how do we speak our truth in the moment in a diplomatic way?
I think it depends what situation you're in,
Yeah.
right? If you're having a one-to-one conversation with a friend or a family member, I would just be really raw and vulnerable.
No.
No shame in saying how I feel about things. And it's really up to the other person to welcome that space for the vulnerability and realness. But if you're, someone who has influence, I know that words have matter and your words cannot have harm in them. Maybe reframe it in a way where people can understand your perspective, but it's not that you're insulting anybody or putting anybody down about who they are, but maybe getting more curious about why they think that way. Seeing the opposite side of like seeing them with curiosity rather than reactivity or conflict or it's me against them kind of thing.
Where the ego really kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah. And creates separation, right? So if we cannot, and this starts with us too, if we cannot come to terms with our own duality, with our own shadow and light, then how can we ever accept that polarity in the world? When you start to get really comfortable with your own dialogue of shame, guilt, fear, all of those negative experiences, and you're like, well, I'm going to get curious about them instead of reacting in a negative way towards myself. Okay, I
Yes.
need to do that outside also, right? And we see it with the whole thing that's happening in the world, a lot of division. How do we stop the division? We get curious. We get curious and we don't consent to war. We consent to love. And love means I'm holding everything as it is in this existence with reverence.
I recently made a pledge that I choose to find more commonality with people, even when on the surface we disagree on certain things and values. And that's transforming how I live my day-to-day life.
Oh, I love that. The commonalities. Yeah, we often forget that we're relatable too, right?
Mm, mm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I love that.
This is my favorite part, which is I ask each guest to give us a gift, and that is leave a question for me or the viewers to contemplate on. Do you have one for us?
My question to everybody is when you tune into yourself, where are you fighting yourself the most? And can you meet that part of yourself with reverence and unconditional love?
Wow, thank you so much.
Mahalo.
And where can people, yes, mahalo, and where can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on Instagram, my Instagram account called at Living Kuleana. And then the other one would be at sisterhood.of.mu, where you can see all of the things that we're cooking up in the next few weeks and months.
Yay, mahalo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha, ma.